That was the breakthrough moment where we took £500,000 of loss in the first full year to £750,000 of profit with what we would now call the affinity marketing model. That was the breakthrough. That was the step number one. We're taught at school that copying is bad, but actually in business, copy, pivot, test, learn, and work out what the big model is before you go big, not after you go big and lose such a lot of money like I did.
Richard, you are very welcome to the ScaleX Insider Podcast. Delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
Great to be here, Brendan. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. It's an incredible story. I'm looking forward to diving into that today. We're very aligned on my vision, to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. So, Richard, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
To me, I think it's about ambitious growth, and then purpose is the most important part of a business strategy. It's what every entrepreneur founder is passionate about, and I think we should never lose sight of that purpose. With my business, HomeServe, it was about how do we make home improvements and repairs easy for customers. And at the time, it wasn't. People worried about a big home emergency. So it was always useful to, whatever the problem or opportunity in the business as we scaled, was getting all of the team, the management team, all the staff at the front line focused back on that purpose. And in particular, what we're doing for customers. Why are we here?
Love that. And I'm going to invite you to share the HomeServe story in a moment, but just let's stay on the purpose principle for a little moment. Was that always the case? Did you found the business rooted in purpose, or is purpose something that evolved as you scaled the business?
It was around finding where's the consumer need. What's the problem that we're trying to solve, and then that developed into the purpose. So was it there from day one? No, I don't think it was. Once we'd found the magic business model, then it was about saying, so how does that fit into what we're passionate about in the business? Secondly, how can we make sure that we've got a unique selling point, that we're different from everybody else? And then thirdly, how do we monetize that? What's our business model that will mean that we make money?
Brilliant. Really clear. Well, look, for those who are listening, who are not familiar with the HomeServe story, which is just an incredible scale-up story, and certainly you're a scaling with purpose exemplar. Can you give us the abridged version? How did you create a multi-billion pounds business? If you can share the abridged version of that story, Richard, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think half of entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurs, the other half fall into it later in life. I was definitely in the former camp, and did my apprenticeship in business with 5 businesses that I ran in my childhood, preschool, when I was at school, from breeding white rabbits and running a rabbit kennels, to being a children's magician, to tying flies for fishing, and opening a mail order business, selling those fly tying materials to other fly tyers, converting them into hookers, high fashion earrings for teenage girls. But thought, after those businesses, I really need to properly learn about marketing, go and work for a big company, and join Procter & Gamble in Newcastle as the marketing assistant on Fairy Liquid. That's why my hands are still so soft. But I thought, I don't just want to do a day job. I need to keep my hand in on running a business on the side, because I'm looking for that big business opportunity. And by the age of sort of 21, joining Procter & Gamble, I still hadn't found that right opportunity. And with a friend who became a business partner, we started buying houses in Newcastle, refurbishing them, letting them by the room to young professionals, £40 a week, including letting out the dining room. And I think we'd sort of bought about 10 of these houses. And do you know what the biggest problem was? For some reason, all these tenants would call on a Friday evening saying, we got water pouring out of a radiator, or we've got a block drain in the backyard, or the boiler's broken down. And you could not get a Geordie plumber for love nor money in Newcastle on a Friday night. They're all out drinking. So we thought, that's the big business idea. We'll hire a couple of those Geordie plumbers. We'll make sure that one of them is on call on a Friday evening. We placed ads in Yellow Pages. We called the business A1 Fast Fix to get in the front of the plumbing and the heating section. We put our life savings into the business, and literally over the course of 6 months, we saw all of that money go down the drain. The business model didn't work. The cost of Yellow Pages was too high. People only have a plumbing emergency every 5 years, so there was no repeat business, and we ran out of money. And somehow, borrowing money from friends and family, managed to keep the business going, pay the staff salaries in Christmas 1992. We were determined to find a way through. And that's when my step number 2 comes in, get an investor. But not when you've run out of money, when your back's up against the wall. We went round 15 large water companies saying, we've got this great business in Newcastle. Do you want to invest? They all said no, with one small exception, little water company north of Birmingham. And they said, we'll put in £500,000, but we want 52% of the business. We want the majority. We got no option. That was the only investor. So we took the money and managed to keep the business going.
Let me just recap then from rabbits to hookers in your teenage years. It's quite a story, which really seeded your entrepreneurial skill set, your entrepreneurial flair. You speak to many of our own principles here in terms of proposition, place, partnerships, and especially, the essence of great entrepreneurialism is either solving a problem or servicing a need. Your entrepreneurial endeavors led you to have this portfolio of houses. You realize then that these houses need serviced in some way, and as every entrepreneur does, he sets out to solve that problem. So HomeServe is born. The infancy is seeded there in solving that problem. Business model wasn't working, ran out of cash, and we talk about cash being the oxygen to scale. And you sought investments. You mentioned kind of this is your second step. I'm going to come to your book at the moment in which you lay out 9 steps. But just take us, what happened in terms of the correction of the business model after you had received investment to save this business, and go from there to the fast forward to creating a multi-billion dollar company.
Yeah, unfortunately, all I did was took the money and scaled the existing Yellow Pages model, and getting a few inquiries from the water company call center, but fundamentally hadn't changed the model, and thought all I need to do is grow it bigger, and then we'll get economies of scale and we'll get to profit. And one of my biggest life learnings was we didn't. Every month as the business grew, the break-even line got further away, and all that happened was the £10,000 a month losses now became £50,000 a month. I got to the end of the first year having taken the water company £500,000 and ran out of cash again, down to the last £10,000, except now it was far worse. There were 23 people in the business, all fearful they're about to lose their jobs. And even my business partner, Jeremy, came to me and said, Richard, you've got to accept that your life dream going back to the age of 4 is over. You're not going to become a successful entrepreneur. You better go back and work at Procter and Gamble. And so, you know what? Sometimes in life, when you're so determined, your life dream is there, you can have a little bit of luck. And fortunately, I had a little bit of luck. Somebody called me and said, there's this water company in Surrey, and they've developed this sort of plumbing insurance scheme, and it covers the underground water pipe in people's gardens. If it bursts, they'll find the leak, they'll repair or replace the underground pipe. So I got in my car, drove down to Surrey, stood on the high street in Sutton, and asked people if they were a customer of Sutton Water and had they joined the Sutton Water plumbing scheme. When I got a dozen people that had, got them into a meeting room and ran a focus group. I'm a big believer in grassroots market research, asking customers. And I said, what do you like about their products? What don't you like? And what haven't they got in there? And we took out the annual inspection of the water pipe. We added in emergency plumbing and block drain cover. And literally, with the last £10,000 before the business was closed, we sent out a mail shot, branded as South Staffs Water, direct mail that copied the model in Sutton Water. 38 people sent in the check for £50. I remember getting on my office desk in front of those 23 people that were about to lose their jobs and said, yes, we made it. And that was it. Almost the rest is history. That was the breakthrough moment where we took £500,000 of loss in the first full year to £750,000 of profit with what we would now call the affinity marketing model. That was the breakthrough. That was the step number one. We're taught at school that copying is bad, but actually in business, copy, pivot, test, learn, and work out what the big model is before you go big, not after you go big and lose such a lot of money like I did.
Oh, this is incredible. So you've referenced the steps a number of times, and for the benefit of our listeners, the steps are enshrined in your very latest book, How to Make $1 Billion in 9 Steps. And I feel as you're describing your journey, rather than a masterclass independently of these steps, let's use the steps as you've brought in to chart your own journey in terms of creating this multi-billion pounds scaling exemplar. So before we kind of move on, there's one thing that really strikes me here. Despite the burden of the losses, despite the fact that the business model was clearly broken, despite the fact that you were scaling chaos at that point, and your business partner was saying, Richard, look, time's up here. Let's just cut our losses and go. What is it about you, and what is it about the entrepreneurial psyche that's so critically important in the context of scaling? And is your mindset something that we can learn, or do you feel you're just born with this kind of level of resilience, this can do, this determination to kind of run through brick walls? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is actually my step 9, the personal characteristics of an entrepreneur and how you hone that character. And I genuinely believe you don't need to be born with all those characteristics. I genuinely believe that you can learn, but equally I would say that lots of people are not cut out to be an entrepreneur, but many are. and they can learn how to do it. They can fall into it later in life, but they need to focus on some of those key skills. And for me, I'm not very good at many things. I have to copy from others and learn from others. But what I have got is resilience, determination. I work really hard. Those are all of the things that are really, really important, particularly when your back's up against the wall, as it was with me twice, when we ran out of money with A1 Fast Fix, when we nearly then ran out of money in the first year after the backing of South Staff's Water. And you've got to say, I've got to find a way through this. And I knew I would. I'd got that determination, that persistence to hope that I could find the magic business model that would then become scalable.
What do you think seeded your belief that this business could work?
A determination that I wanted to build a big business. I wanted to be a successful entrepreneur, that I'd run many businesses in my teens. This was really my last opportunity, and I couldn't walk away from it. Needed to find a way through changing the model, pivoting until I'd found that breakthrough and the light at the end of the tunnel.
It strikes me that we need this level of pain in our business lives in order to be more creative, to be more innovative, to seed greater determination. What's your thoughts on that?
There is a business school theory which says if you've been through a crucible, a personal or a business crisis, and you come out the other end, then you can be even more determined and even more successful. So I think going through those, nearly running out of money twice, really helped me in redoubling my determination. And that they were the things that helped me find the right business model. And then saying, having found the right business model, we've now got to think big. And how do we really scale this?
I love this. Just one more question on your psyche and what you describe in step 9 as honing your character. What did you tell yourself during that time? I mean, your business partner's there in your ear. Did you distance yourself from your business partner? Did you start to surround yourself with others who are more positive? Did you get up early in the morning and go for a jog to clear your head? You know, how were you changing your own inner dialogue and silencing the weight of disbelief, those criticisms that were coming at you?
Yeah, it was just working harder and harder until I had that bit of luck and found the right model. That was then about testing it and learning from that other model that I copied and improved upon. And then once it was proven, then it was about saying, right, how do we now scale this model? And that was a key bit, was coming up with the sort of what we now call the affinity marketing model. So saying, we want to now go back to all these water companies that said no to investing in HomeServe, to say, actually, we've developed this plumbing insurance cover. We want to use your brand name, your customer base. We will cover the cost of the marketing. We will run the service and do the plumbing emergency jobs with a network of great plumbing subcontractors, and we'll pay you a risk-free commission for every one of your customers that signs up in the first year and every year they renew. We will retain ownership for those customers, and that was a key part of our model. And that was the way that we came up with something that was scalable. First, signing up all the water companies in the UK, and then later on saying, I wonder whether this business would work in a foreign country.
Brilliant. So step one, copy and pivot. And what we're saying here is it's analogous to the other little kind of the alternative acronym to our understanding of R&D, which is, I've often heard, rip off and duplicate. But copy and pivot. I mean, the reality is there's no such thing as original ideas. All the best businesses are founded on a coming together of maybe existing business models that are out there, a combination of products. I think of the suitcase that I wheel in the airports most weeks. Somebody just decided that rather than cart box luggage together, we should put wheels on it, and you never see anyone carrying a case anymore. They're all wheeled. But I mean, wheels existed going back to Egyptian times. The box luggage suitcase was there for hundreds and hundreds of years as well, and just bringing both together creates another wonderful product, again rooted in solving a problem. So copy and pivot, finding an investor, step two, was clearly critical to not only saving the business but actually giving you the headroom to start to rethink the business model. Step three, you speak about getting some coachment. What do you mean by this, Richard?
Yeah, the magic model actually is finding somebody that has got the business experience that's relevant. It'd be even better if they've trained as a business coach, so that they're asking you intelligent questions, understanding your problem or opportunity, and then giving you some advice, but that needs to be show you but never tell you. After I sold HomeServe, I went to INSEAD and trained as a business coach in 2023, 12 days of my time commitment, but it was really worthwhile, and I thought it would help me as I move into helping other businesses to grow, investing in other businesses, and going from a sort of hands-on founder, chief exec, to hands-off as an investor, chairman, and advisor. And I was a bit late to finding my first mentor. And it was really 2010. And by which time HomeServe had been in America for 7 years. I got a great guy over there that was running it. But we hadn't signed enough big American utilities on that model that I talked about, and so I thought I need somebody that can really help me be successful in America. We know of all of those Brits that tried to conquer America and failed, and I found this guy Nigel Morris, and he was a Brit, but Americanized. He'd lived in Washington D.C. for 18 years. He was a co-founder of Capital One in America before he brought that credit card business to the UK. And I thought, he's the guy that can help a Brit to be successful in America. So I emailed him. Then I wrote to him. Then I sent him a DHL package, no response. One evening, I think it was 11 o'clock UK time, 6 p.m. Washington, D.C., East Coast time. I got his office telephone number and called it. Lo and behold, he answered. Said, "You don't know me. I'm a struggling British entrepreneur trying to make it big in America. That was my childhood dream. And I just need, Nigel, an hour of your help." He said, "Oh, I remember you now. Big apologies. Persistence pays. And next time you're in America, I'll give you an hour of my time." I said, "It just so happens, Nigel, I'm in Washington, D.C. tomorrow afternoon." Of course, I wasn't. I got on the first flight out of Heathrow. I was in his office at 2 p.m. and he gave me 3 hours of his time. And he asked me two simple questions. Firstly, "So where are you based over here, Richard?" I said, "Oh, we're in Miami because the guys that underwrite the insurance cover that we offer in America are Matt Frey. They happen to be in Miami. I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm a bit tight with my money. So I thought we'll just rent an office in their call center." And he shook his head violently, said, "Absolutely not. If you want to be a serious American business, hire great people. You need to be based between Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C., 5-hour time difference, and hire great people in those areas. And he was right. We hired a load of people that either wanted to go to the beach at 4 p.m. or smoke dope. And you can't do that. You need great Americans to run your US business. So we listened and we left Miami and we moved our US head office to Norwalk, Connecticut, an hour north of New York. And that then meant we could hire great Americans to bring into the business. His other question was, who have you got running your US business over here then? So, fantastic guys called Jonathan King. He ran HomeServe UK. I promoted him and he's now out here running our US business. Shook his head again. Americans buy from Americans. You won't be taken seriously if you've got a Brit running your US business. And we got a fantastic Brit. And he was doing a great job, but ultimately you need an American. And so in 2010, when HomeServe was only making $10 million annual profit after 7 years of being in that country, I hired a guy called Tom Rusin, an American, and I only got him because he lived in Connecticut. And Tom still runs HomeServe North America today. Last year, HomeServe America made $250 million of annual profit. And that is step number 6, go global with locals. And step number 3, find a great coach or mentor that can help you overcome that problem or opportunity that you're grappling with.
I love that. I'm still trying to digest the $250 million profits. That's phenomenal. Really well done to you and the team. This resonates strongly. We write about this in the context of the place principle, and your experience certainly chimes with our own. We actually, in the previous business, we launched a strategy called localization, and it was about hiring the locals, the local accent to sell to the local accent, the American guy and girl who could speak about the NBA game at the weekend, who could talk about the baseball coming up, who was going to the NFL game, who could really have that local dialogue, build those relationships, and understand the culture intimately. But we augmented those people with exemplars of our own culture back in Ireland, and they would come out and spend time with the locals that we hired. So I absolutely get this. Just a question before we move on to step 4 in terms of bricks and clicks and paper. If you could go back, would you have engaged with a coach and mentor earlier in your scaling journey?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say to anybody listening that if you haven't got a coach or mentor, then go and get one. And many mentors will give the time for free. You only maybe need to have 1 or 2 sessions with that mentor, and hopefully they were successful because they found a mentor. So most people will be happy to give something back. And that's a really important step that you need to go and do right now.
Yeah, just somebody posing to you with a degree of conviction and confidence, two questions which really got you thinking, helped change the trajectory of and the fortunes of the business in North America. So again, I'm smiling, resonates very, very strongly. So step 4, bricks and clicks and paper. What do you mean by this, Richard, in the context of scaling?
It sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? We're in a digital marketing era, and I'm saying bricks and clicks and paper. And HomeServe was built on paper, direct mail, branded as the utilities, mail shots going out to their customer base up to 6 times a year, and they worked. And what's more so now is that many companies have stopped doing direct mail, and therefore those companies that are still doing it, get a higher percentage share of the doormat. And if we all think to our own homes, how many bits of mail we get through the letterbox, it's far less today than it was 5 or 10 years ago. Therefore, you're more likely to pay note. So it works. I think the modern day junk mail is our email boxes. If you look at companies like the White Company, Charles Tyrwhitt, Sweaty Betty, one of my own investments, Easy Bathrooms, they all have printed catalogues that still work. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be doing them. An exciting business that I'm invested in is Checkatrade. We put out 16 million A4 leaflets through 16 million letterboxes 6 times a year. There's a different version for every 50,000 households. They have 150 tracked trade telephone numbers that customers can call, but many customers also go to the Checkatrade website. So it's paper generating clicks, and it generates about 15% of our web traffic. So that's really, really important. So even in a digital age, paper works, and paper can generate clicks. And then the other part is bricks. And what do I mean by that? This is about taking an online business and saying, wouldn't they have more credibility if they built the brand by either getting the products into somebody else's stores or opening their own stores? That journey might start with a pop-up stand, a pop-up store. Stubble & Co., one of my investments, they sell their amazing backpacks at park runs with literally a pop-up stall, and it gets exposure to the product, to the Stubble & Co. brand name, and it works. Another example would be Passenger clothing. Passenger is a copy of Patagonia, colorful outdoor clothing. Their hero product is the fleece. And we proved that when we got the products into John Lewis and Cotswold Outdoor in the UK, that some people would go into John Lewis and say, wow, this is amazing, amazing clothing, but they haven't got my size or they haven't got my full range. And therefore, some customers would go to Passenger online and would then order online. So it's a win-win for John Lewis because they were generating many of the sales in store, and a win for us because we're also getting some of those customers direct. And we tracked those online inquiries around the postcodes of the local store to show that that model of having bricks was really working. And maybe I'll just give you one more example. An optician's business in America called Warby Parker, and they were online only, selling specs. And one of the management team said, how about if we open a store in New York? Everybody else said, absolutely not. Have you not read our strategy? It says we're online only. We want to keep our costs low. Anyway, this person got their way. They opened a test store in Manhattan. And guess what? It worked. There were more clicks generated in the New York zip codes than before they opened the store. And secondly, and most importantly, because they put a picture of the store online, it helped their online credibility, and the overall conversion rate of clicks to sales went from 3 to 6%. So it helped the online business. So this is omni-channel. I'm a big believer of the whole of that model: bricks and clicks and paper.
I love that. It's such a refreshing perspective in a world that's now increasingly dominated by technology and how we leverage technology, especially AI. And what you're sharing here, Richard, is just the paper and bricks generate clicks. Love that. Again, makes sense that it's so contrarian to everything else that we're hearing in the context of marketing at the moment. And I've had so many guests on who speak to how to market, and there's so many. It's so confusing for many SME leaders who are passionate about their product but really confused as to the most effective way to get their product into the hands of their customers. So very refreshing, and I have to say it makes sense as you share it, and clearly you've battle tested this as well. So step 5, hire your replacement. You've alluded to it already in relation to the conversations with your coach and mentor in terms of hiring great people, but specifically you talk about hiring your replacement, essentially making yourself redundant. Tell me about the importance of that in the context of scaling.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult message for us entrepreneurs. We think that we're indispensable. Entrepreneurs have loads of ideas, but actually we need somebody that can deliver the day-to-day business, generate growth, generate great customer satisfaction. And I was a rubbish chief exec. And I hired a guy that was business development director for a year in HomeServe UK, helped me to sign up some of those water utilities on that affinity model. After a year, I called him into my office and said, Jonathan, you're promoted. I'm giving you the job of managing director at HomeServe UK. And at the time, we were only a UK business. And it was making myself redundant, but actually it meant that I could work on the business rather than in the business. And that enabled me to start thinking about, I wonder whether HomeServe would work in a foreign country, knowing that he was going to focus on still scaling the UK, generating that growth, looking after our customers, and meant that I could free up my thinking and doing time to work on international development.
Yeah, again, so critically important, and you lean on the work of the wonderful Michael E. Gerber there, cited in his book, The E-Myth. It's cliched, and I think it's so cliched now, people kind of move beyond it. The importance of working on the business, not in the business, and actually making yourself redundant to give yourself capacity to think about what this a scaled version of this business might look like. When you're in the business and stuck in the balls of the business, I think the last thing you can really contemplate is actually doing more of the same. So yeah. The fact that you're deliberate about hiring a replacement, you said, and I think you're doing yourself an incredible disservice there, and wonderfully modest. But I was a rubbish CEO. At what point did you discern that actually I feel that someone else might do a better job? I'm not particularly enjoying it, is what I'm hearing. And actually, this is not the best use of my entrepreneurial skill set here in terms of trying to operate this business. I'm a visionary, I'm not an operator. When did the penny drop for you, Richard?
That was 8 years into my journey. And 7 years after that, HomeServe was worth its sort of first £1 billion valuation. I look back and think I should have done it earlier. And I look at the example of Ben Francis of Gymshark. He set that business up in 2012. After only 3 years, he hired Steve Hewitt, who was a successful MD chief exec. He'd worked in Reebok before that, and joined Gymshark as the chief exec. 5 years later, and Gymshark was worth its first £1 billion. So Ben did it much earlier. Once I'd hired Jonathan to run HomeServe UK, then thought that's the model that we need to scale. So we went into France next and hired a chief exec to run that business. She ultimately then handed over to a local We did the same in Spain, and replicated that model across 10 countries, saying we want great chief execs. We'll give them a fair amount of autonomy, a high amount of responsibility to run a core business model that is 90% the same between the different countries, but they're running it. They're a local, they speak the local language, and it's their business. And that was the thing that enabled HomeServe to scale and me to step up to become the group chief exec, focused on which country next, how do we develop the product range, what else do we need to do in order to build a really big and valuable business.
It's such an important message here. And I suspect, Richard, without putting words in your mouth, that Jonathan relished the opportunity, was delighted to be given that opportunity to become the MD of UK. You know, in that context, and just that one decision, you then proved a business model which then enabled the hiring, the bringing in of 10 other execs. You're giving them the opportunity and creating, I suspect, thousands of opportunities in terms of job opportunities as a result of the scaling within those respective countries, all as a result of you deciding to move beyond, I suppose, the egoic notion that no, I need to be the CEO here. I need to do that. I need to be stuck in the business. So an important message. Step 6 we're on to. So
yeah, I think we've really covered step 6 and talked about going global with locals, and maybe go on and talk about step 7.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, go global with locals, an important message here. And I suppose without losing the sight here that you had a big vision to begin with. When did you actually start to form and communicate a vision that suggested this wasn't going to be a UK company, was going to be a global company? At what point in the journey did you start to think about that and really communicate that?
Yeah, it was at the point that Jonathan King had been appointed as my successor running HomeServe UK, and then thought, where should we go? And thought, logically, it should be France, because at the time, the listed company that HomeServe was a part of was South Staffs Water. They were 30% owned by General Deseaux, the largest water company in France. So the logic of taking the model there, it still took a year to get General Deseaux to sign up and commit to the model. We did it as a joint venture, and hired a chief exec to put in to develop and test the model. They told us to do it differently, and the UK model is not going to work in our country. And just as we're about to fail and go back to say, well, okay, we tried, it didn't work, let's have one more go, and let's try the original model that we launched in the UK as that original copy, direct mail, branded as General Deseaux service. And guess what? It worked. Fantastic. So that was the model of saying, stick to something that is at least 90% replicates what we've tested, improved, and rolled out in the UK.
So just give me some dates here. You were 8 years into your journey in HomeServe. What year was that in which you...
That was sort of the year 2000, 2001. Okay. That's when we went into France. We then launched in the US in 2003. And then gradually looked at which other countries were going to work, and ultimately got the business model into 10 countries, including a joint venture with Mitsubishi in Japan. And going into Germany, where when we went into Germany the first time round, we didn't get enough commitment from a utility there to make the model work. But if at first it doesn't work, we went back into Germany, and that model today does work and is growing like mad. So you shouldn't always give up, and you should go back once you know that you've got your model 100% right, and try again.
Brilliant, Richard. And just again, for the benefit of our listeners, what size was the business whenever you stepped out of the CEO role in the UK to become kind of the group CEO? What revenue-wise, employee numbers?
I think we got about a million customers. The business was doing revenue of probably around 50 or 60 million pounds, and we're typically making a 20 to 25% net profit margin.
And we'll come to the wrap up in terms of what size you ultimately took it to. But so step 7, evolution and revolution, and you've certainly threaded this through your messaging in terms of kind of evolving business model, evolving yourself, evolving your team. So share a little bit about the evolution and revolution.
Yeah, there is a role for revolution, but that is it at the start of a business when you're coming up with that revolutionary new product, which, as we said, could be copying somebody else's and then improving it, taking learning from a different market. Once you've established and proved your product, then revolution is dangerous. It is 2 steps removed from what you're currently doing. But equally, if you just stick to your current model and you don't constantly evolve it every year, then you're going to die. And let's remind ourselves of some of those businesses that have either died or are a shadow of the former selves. Yellow Pages is one. They weren't quick enough to digitize the model. Blockbuster Video, Nokia mobile phones, and the list goes on. But they didn't have constant evolution. And that's really important. So an evolution of the HomeServe model was somebody called me and said, have you seen this business in America called Home Advisor? And it's like an online platform for finding local tradespeople. And it goes beyond emergencies and small repairs to cover home improvements. And I thought that would be a great way to be able to expand our business model to making not just emergencies and repairs, but also make it easy for consumers to do home improvements. So I wondered whether there's a model like that in the UK. Great believer in market research, did an online survey, spent £2,000 on a survey monkey, and it said, if you buy stuff online, e.g. from Amazon, and you are looking for a kitchen fitter or bathroom fitter to put in a new kitchen or bathroom, where would you go? And I fully expected them to come back and say, I just look online, I'd look at Google, and it didn't. It came back and said, I'd go to Checkatrade. And I won't sing you the jingle, but hopefully everybody knows the name and the jingle. I wasn't familiar with how the business model works. I found out that it was a guy called Kevin Byrne was the founder. He was still the chief exec, and the business was based on the South Coast. So I went down to see him, loved the business, and thought I would really like to buy it. But he said, sorry, Richard, I'm selling to somebody else in a week's time. And I thought, oh dear. He wouldn't tell me who. I found out within 24 hours it was Home Advisor. That was a business backed by Barry Diller of Interactive Corporation that had been really successful with Match.com and with Expedia. And I thought, I don't want them buying Checkatrade. Maybe they could evolve the model to do the stuff that HomeServe was doing with annual home assistance cover. So I went back to Kevin, made him an offer that he couldn't refuse, and Checkatrade became part of HomeServe. And that's a really important evolution of our model. Actually, now we run the business separately, completely separate team. It's taken longer than we expected. We've got an amazing team that are running the business, and it's growing like mad. And I think in the next few years, it's going to become the next Auto Trader or Rightmove by just focusing on the UK and offering a fantastic online marketplace experience.
Incredible. Moving on to the 8th step, follow a not to-do list.
We all have a to-do list, don't we? Because business is about getting stuff done and making stuff happen. But a lot of us don't have a not to-do list, and that is even more important. And we've just got a siren in the background, so we'll just wait a second. Apologies for that. So it's really, really important to have a not to-do list. And why and how do you go about doing that? Well, if we go back to that sort of original question of having a purpose, that is really, really important. So if you imagine 3 concentric circles and asking 3 questions, what are you passionate about in your business? And that will be your purpose. Secondly, how can you be the best at what you do? How can you be a little bit different to your competitors? That will be your unique selling proposition. And thirdly, how can you monetize your business? What's your economic engine to make money? And what I'd recommend everybody does is answers those 3 questions in 1 sentence of no more than 20 words. And that will become your strategy. Make sure everybody in the business knows that strategy. And then everybody says, is what I'm doing today, this week, this month, this year, does it fit with that strategy? And if it doesn't, stop doing it. Put whatever you are doing that doesn't fit with that on your not to-do list. We did this exercise about 6 months ago with an organization that I run and own, which is called Business Leader. And we said, Business Leader inspires our founders and CEO members to fast forward their growth through unique content and facilitated learning. And what does that mean? Well, we got a magazine that inspires with the case studies of other entrepreneurs that have done it. And then it says, how do you do it? Answering the 62 questions that entrepreneurs have, which says, but how do I do this, that, or the other? Also through having a membership community. I look back and it's pretty lonely as an entrepreneur. And the bit that I miss is having a peer group in the way that I had one at Procter & Gamble when there were 13 of us, all new to Newcastle, learning on the job, going out socializing and learning from each other. So Business Leader is about a membership community, forming peer groups with 10 entrepreneurs and chief execs with a facilitator coach and providing that coaching and mentoring support. And a key part of that is have that not to-do list, remain really focused. And if I was looking back and saying, what's the biggest thing I did wrong in my journey over that 30 years, it was trying to do too much. If we had continued to evolve every year, developing the product range, getting into more countries, but not saying, let's get into doing furniture warranties for furniture retailers in the UK. That was 2 steps removed from what we were doing. Getting into doing the things that are covered by a household insurance policy, like fire and flood damage and restoration. Those were low margin activities. and we ultimately got into those businesses and then eventually got back out of them and focused back on the magic home assistance model.
This is an absolute masterclass in scaling. Before we move into the close, so you stepped out of the CEO role in the UK back in 2000, 2001. So we're talking kind of 25 years ago. That stage business doing 50 million in revenue with 25% net profit, which again, a wonderful business and in the minority in terms both of the size and the profitability. Give our listeners a sense of the size of the business now, 2.5 decades on.
Yeah, so when the business was eventually sold to Brookfield, the Canadian infrastructure business that has $1 trillion under management. This was a business with 10,000 people, 8.5 million members, operating in 10 countries, and with 11 chief execs within in the business doing the core model, and then some others doing the checker trade like model as well. So a large business, I think sort of revenues of in excess of £1.5 billion, business that was making sort of around 20% net profit margin. And along came Brookfield and said, we want to buy the business. We were a FTSE 100 listed company. I floated the business on the stock market back in 2004 when we'd outgrown the parent water company. At the time, at a market capitalization of £300 million, and then grew it from there. And Brookfield, I thought, would be a great next owner of the business, that we could do more as a private company rather than being listed on the stock market. And I thought, now is the time for me to step back from being the group chief exec and handing over to my other chief execs. So we'd got Tom Rusin running North America, the largest part of HomeServe, and wanted him to be a full chief exec in his own right. We'd got Ross Clemo, that had 8 chief execs reporting into him, running those other 8 countries, and he should run the rest of HomeServe. And then we'd got the checker trade chief exec and a few businesses like that were reporting into me. So let's sort of split up those businesses under Brookfield's ownership, enabling them to grow even faster. I could then step into a non-exec chairman role after I'd been and done that coaching, and enabled me to be a bit more hands-off, and did that role for 2 years. I did reinvest money back into checker trade, and that is now one of the businesses that sits within Growth Partner, where I've got 14 exciting businesses, £150 million of my own money invested, and a team that help those businesses to grow and scale. But I also, after a couple of years as non-exec chairman, I thought I want to really help other UK businesses, medium-sized ones, to scale. We only have, believe it or not, 7,500 large companies in the UK. They employ 39% of the working population. They account for 53% of exports. And then we've got 75,000 medium-sized companies turning over more than £3 million, employing more than 15 people, but less than 250, because that's the definition of large company. And they get forgotten about in this country.
Completely.
They need investment. They need a mentor. They need to know how to hire a great team and ultimately hire their replacement. How do they develop beyond being a UK only business and become global, but doing it at the right time, in the right way, with the right people, not changing more than 15% of the model. So I thought, I never want to retire. I wrote my career plan for the next 25 years. I'd be bored stiff after about a month. Hopefully, you can judge that my passion is business, and I want to help 7,500 medium-sized businesses in the UK to become large companies, and we can do that without relying upon any government. And I think it's a credit, Brendan, to what you're doing with ScaleX, your book. You're passionate. You've put 100 entrepreneurs through your 12-month course, and I think it's amazing what you're doing. I want to supplement that and do even more through my book, How to Make a Billion in 9 Steps. It's out in July. I'd love you to buy a copy, read it, and I hope it helps you scale. If you'd like to come to one of my growth workshops and you're a business that's turning over more than £3 million, employing more than 15 people every week, in my home, in my dining room in Marylebone in London, I have 15 entrepreneurs around my dining table, and it's a 2-hour masterclass in growth. It's completely free of charge. Come along, because I love running them. It's a peer group in itself around the table. It's interactive. And if you go away with just the focus on one of those 9 steps and you start growing your business even quicker, that's a great benefit to this economy.
Hear, hear, Richard. Look, thank you, and thank you for the kind words. And we're absolutely aligned, both passionate about inspiring, connecting, and enabling ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. They're the backbone of our economies. Conscious of time, you've been very generous. Can you share with our audience, which is a tradition on the show, 3 timeless takeaways?
Yeah, I would say the one thing I've only just touched on, but would be come up with your own set of values or behaviors. And I guess it sort of links into that hone your character, the step number 9. But think about, what are the behaviors that you believe in, that you should embed within the culture of your business and your team. And mine are courage. Going and paying such a lot of money for checker trade, but seeing it then come good and delivering value. But I had to go to my board and suggest that we pay a ridiculous amount of money to acquire the business. And I had the courage to ask them. They had the courage to back me back in 2017. Secondly, persistence pays. Tracking down that mentor that you can help you, even if they ignore your letter or email at the beginning, or signing that vital business partner that can step change the growth in your business. If at first they say no, don't accept that. Just keep going and finding a way through. Otherwise, you're not a true entrepreneur. And then thirdly, integrity. And I don't take that to mean honesty, because hopefully there's a high degree of honesty in business, but I take it to mean confront the brutal facts, have those honest conversations, and what are the things that your team don't want to challenge you on? You've got to find a way that they do, otherwise your business will rapidly go downhill. There's got to be those addressing the elephant in the room, the brutal fact that need to talk about and then take some action, even if that means getting rid of somebody, having that honest conversation, taking a difficult action, addressing cost savings that need to be made, because it's a difficult climate out there and cost bases of all our businesses are going up. So whatever the brutal facts are, address it. But back to those 3 things, come up with your values or behaviors, and then make sure that you embed those into the culture of your business.
Love those. Be courageous, persistence pays, and maintain integrity. And that's just being honest with yourself, honest with others, transparent, and having, back to the first takeaway, being courageous enough to address the challenging elephants in the room, let's say. I love those. Richard, I want to thank you for the value you're putting out into the world, for everything you're doing. You could close the front gates and retire nicely and not annoy yourself with any of this, but this is you sending the elevator back down. You've showed up today with such humility, with generosity, sharing incredible wisdom, and I wish you every success with your community. We're very aligned. We'll speak after this, and with your book. Look, folks, go out and grab a copy of Richard's book, How to Make $1 Billion in 9 Steps. Very, very organized, very structured, very logical, and certainly resonates significantly with my own experience. Richard, if people want to connect with you, which invariably I suspect they will, how best to reach you?
Yeah, go to businessleader.co.uk and have a look at what we're doing there. You could take a subscription to Business Leader magazine. You could come to one of my growth workshops. And the next step is I want to encourage growth outside of London, the Southeast. So I'm going to be going on the road and taking those free growth workshops to many cities around the UK over the coming 12 months. So do sign up for one of those if you've got a business that is a scale up, turning over more than £3 million. Also have a look at what I'm doing at harpin.com, and shortly be able to sign up for my own newsletter.
Brilliant. Richard, thanks once again, and take care.
Thanks, Brendan.